G'day. It's time to down your unders. Review and dissection of content from some of the sharpest minds in the game. Hosted by Adam Camilleri. Art of War. Down Under.
G'day everybody and welcome to a conglomerate action-packed State of the Superfaction for Xenos episode. What you have following will be 4 segments with 4 different luminaries of said factions. We'll be doing about 20 minutes-ish with each of Mr. Joshua Campbell, who's joining us right now. Hello, mate.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
He'll be joining us as our Necrons expert. Then I have beautiful Kyle Grundy, number 1 in the world, joining us for Tau. I've also lined up Drew Salzborn, who I believe is in the top 3 for Votan in the world at the moment. And, of course, Lucas Troller will be our Orks expert. So you can look forward to that this episode. And then, of course, for every 20 minutes that you hear right now, we'll be doing another 20 minutes over servicing the patronage of Art of War Down Under. Should you wish to get any of that goodness, you know where to go. At Patreon, Art of War Down Under. Get that stuff. Josh, baby, sugar, honey.
Doll.
Necrons, doll, yeah. Kitty cat, puppy dog.
Other adjectives may apply.
Hamster, gerbil.
Discord kitten? I would never. It's okay.
Always a good time. Always love having you on, mate. You've been a bit of a revelation. Such a juxtaposition from the faction you are here to speak about, being bubbly and full of life yourself.
Calculating little goobers.
Yeah, exactly what you are in RL.
Look, I just am glad that I didn't make too much of a fool of myself in front of the rest of the Art of War team at DreamHack, okay? I'm just happy.
You did great. Okay, but we are here to talk the Spicy Metal Men. We're talking Necrons. So, first up, and of course we do these episodes kind of periodically. I'm going to be doing a series of State of the Superfactions, of course, covering pretty much all the Superfactions in the game, along with luminaries of said Superfactions. When I have like smaller superfactions like Eldari or Hive Mind, I'll probably just do a panel show with myself and 2 guests. But when we have 4 distinct, very different factions here in Xenos, that being Necrons, Tau, Orks, Votan, you can't really find a specialist that can talk about all 4 accurately. So, bada bing, bada boom, doing it in segments for you, and it should probably be a very cool episode. But my dude, hot takes, where are Necrons at in the game right now, post MFM and rules changes?
I mean, it's really no surprise to anyone that we got hit with light courtesy slaps on the wrist, and some of our deepest predators got kicked in some places that are maybe a little bit less nice. We're positioned very well. I think we're like top 5, give or take. We do both we play a good standard game in like our more traditional detachments, and I think we are the premier shenanigans detachment in hyperphase right now, just with where Grey Knights are positioned and where NIDs are positioned in the meta. I think that we simply we're very, very strong. We have good stat checks available to us to accentuate that. We are absolutely bangers.
Whereas, you compare some of the other stat checks that the uppy downy or the hyperphase, keyword kind of factions can do. I suppose it's weird that Grey Knights and now the uppy downy Blood Angels lists are kind of doing the same thing, but one's with Daka, one's with melee. Weirdly enough, like you have like your Sangard uppy and downy, but then on the other side of that coin is like Dread Knights uppy downy. I suppose Inceptors are kind of the one in the middle there. But
Inceptors are honestly the new Blood Angels Inceptors. I have not quite hit yet. Not that exact build. I played against the Index Blood Angels build twice.
It's still,
but that one I'm excited to see. I'm hoping it plays like not to really jump the gun at all. Possibly the only other thing that's competitor to us in the shenanigans, which is Rat Cadre. Rat Cadre is insane. Everyone's on it, and it's bananas.
Yeah. Well, once again, they're doing it much more similar to Necrons or Grey Knights, right? Because they're doing it with mid-range Daka, which
turns
is
out 3-inch with guns good.
Yeah, 3-inch gun equals good. Maybe so Jack Harpster, one of the other war guys, is famous for saying fast gun good, 3-inch gun good.
He's not wrong. Fast gun good. If you can just shoot your opponent, they don't get to do any of their shenanigans. They just are dead.
Turns out, yeah.
Please pick up your models, do not pass go, and it's over.
Yeah. So hot takes on Necrons. You say they're a top 5 faction? Why is that? What are they doing in the current meta, and what if anything has caused them to either go up or down in your estimations post changes?
So I mean, I'm gonna firstly bracket this discussion to GW terrain and GW formats and rules. WTC isn't real, and it cannot hurt me if I don't play on it. I don't go to Europe, and I don't care what their meta is. The fact that we evaluate their meta in conjunction to our meta is wrong, and I'm not gonna say asinine, but incorrect. I only play in GW layouts. That's all I do. And in that context, it's great. GW layouts are shooting lanes, and it's so fun. So it's really fun just to go, man, these extra 30 points I got for my 3 DDAs. So, I mean, I guess I'll take a Locust Heavy. Oh, no, at 5 points. Oh, gosh, whatever.
Yeah, exactly right.
We have...
So, okay, keep going.
No, basically, we just have just very efficient gun platforms in a few different builds. Hyperphase being, I would say, the most meta and premier among them due to its ability to alpha strike, basically, as well as do efficient mission play. And that, I think, is just very well positioned in the meta. Like, T-Suns going down was a necessity for us. T-Suns were oppressive.
Yeah, T-Suns, I always think what I was feeling was the ceiling. On Necrons Hypercrypt. I found that they really struggled with the fact that, T-Suns also have ability to have no LOS shooting as well, to pick up your things like your death marks, your flayed ones, your single destroyers pretty much easily. And then, all that great number wound count and or behind a good invuln doesn't matter versus Doombolt. And then
you basically the pacing of the game, and with less assets, they're going to play the same, right? They'll just have the minus the 1 to 2 assets they're going to have is going to be very relevant, because you do like little piddly trading, and then you are forced at some point to go whip it out in the center of the board and say, hey, we are going to do this, and you're either going to roll well enough to kill me or you're not, and I'm going to do my thing where I position my spider so I get my 5-foot field of pain to your whole army. And even then, it's not always enough, because we cannot reliably kill Magnus without the Silent King.
Correct. Yeah, Magnus is a huge problem. And the other one is Sisters. Sisters getting a little bit of a touch surely is a good thing for Necrons too, because they were another bit of a problem faction.
So let me ask you this question, and you know what? I'll ask for your opinion on this. Is the Sister nerf real? Is it?
I mean, they've lost like a unit and a half, right? That's pretty much it. And that's if they want to take exactly the same archetype and list, as in it's just like casties, immos, dominions. I mean, they probably lost a unit of Seraphim from their 2x5 or 1x10, 1x5. Maybe they lost the 5. But apart from that, like, it's pretty same. But I mean, it's like one less thing you got to kill, pretty much, is the kind of runoff from it. The list pretty much operates exactly the same.
I guess, how do I say this? Yes, it is relevant that they lost an asset or two. Like, the Triumph going up 60 points was justified, and the fact that people argue otherwise is crazy to me.
She was the best model in the game. Like, she was
so
straight up. She was the best model in the game at whatever she was, 170 or whatever the crap.
They just play the game good. They play the game good. And how do I say this? When the top end of their like codex got cut down, then it let people re-examine some of the more middle stuff and really go into, instead of just windmill slamming, I don't know, triple immolator, triple castigator, Vol, Triumph, then a bunch of like 300 points of stuff. They have to go, whoa, what do we actually need? And I've never wanted to unalive myself more than when playing versus Exorcists. I hate them. I hate them
so much. I hate them so much. Yeah. The fact that they're actually like above average durability while still being the indirect platform. So you can just play them like a Lehman Russ if you want, and just sit it in firing lanes. And then when people try and stay out of the firing lanes, you shoot them anyway because you got indirect and miracle dice. Exos are brutal.
The less emotional response and the more logical response is like, of the Sisters player that I've talked to, 2 or 3 really good ones. They basically have all unanimously said, I think that my list has objectively gotten like quote unquote worse, but I think that it's gotten like 2% worse. I've optimized my list to actually almost be better than it was before, depending on how you define like the meta. And I'm truly terrified of them. Not all, but a very large portion of my current tech right now and how I'm doing my prep for Worlds is the sisters check.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
crazy. Okay, there's a fun game. I play this game in the car when driving to GTs. Is what can kill 5 sisters of battle with armor of contempt and be points efficient? Answer: there's not a lot.
No, there isn't a lot. There really isn't. And it's just so funny that that's not a problem that people will have to consider versus Marines when they can do, virtually the same thing on power armor with armor contempt. But the points difference between the two units means that like the what is points efficient to kill 5 Marines with armor contempt is like an amazing amount of units. But for sisters, it's like, oh, this 200-point unit is the only thing that can really guarantee this is going to get a job done versus freaking sub 90 point.
60% of the time, just 55 points of girls. You have to kill it more than 60% of the time. It's a really hard problem to solve, and fire and fade is usually the answer.
Yep. Well, so if you have any of that spicy tech against sisters that you feel comfortable giving away without busting your worlds list or worlds tech, feel free to load it on.
Oh, it's not crazy. I mean, we only really have like a couple answers. Answer number 1 is actually fire and fade. Tomb Blades are like fine. They don't always get the job done. You need the 6-man to actually kill them, and then positioning them to actually be safe afterwards is a little hard. After them, we have hex marks. Double Overwatch on hex marks will just do it on average. It just does.
Yep.
You spend the CP on the first one, then the second one you do the quote unquote fake CP, and you just double do it in the center. So you just position them 18 inches away. They do die to immolators, which is a problem, but that's a different problem. And the third one is indirect of your own. We have the Silent King and we have the Vault. And those are pretty much the ways to trade efficiently into them. Theoretically, flayed ones are good, but then you're looking at a reactive moving Dominion into an immolator again, and then that's a different problem. Melee isn't real right now. Aquilons reign supreme. God bless the Queen.
Correct. Aquilons are the all-purpose shutdown aggressive play strategy for. I mean, everybody's going to have to play the plan for Aquilons come Worlds, and I'm really interested to see what people do. So, all right, we've talked about hot takes where they are in the meta right now. We've talked about what they have going for them. What are the downsides for Necrons at the moment? What are they just like absolute apart from sisters, obviously? What are they just like brick walled by, playstyle archetype wise?
Well, obviously. I hate to answer a question with it depends, but I'm going to say it depends a little bit. We have some fundamental problems that are like inherent to like list building. Like if you go for what are the most common and winning builds in Necrons right now, they tend to be very statty. They tend to be very Catan oriented or monolith, vault oriented, tank chassis, effective shooting platforms essentially. And sometimes you just hit the wrong matchup and that sucks, right? Enough, and this is a very tank-oriented meta, so it's not crazy to see that. We're still efficient, right? 3 Fire Prisms don't on average kill a DDA, which is funny. But like, we struggle with pressure, especially with the secret mission change. Like I am, how to say this? I'm very scared of orcs, and I'm very scared of like wolves, even nerfed wolves for what it's worth, just because. If you get actually jailed, and okay, to a lesser extent GSC, but I don't believe GSC are real. And until I hit Innes Wilson, I don't care. If you get like truly jailed, it can be kind of hard to break out with like the all gun platform list. And that's like just a trait. Sure, we have a lot of blast. We have a lot of things that don't really love being tied in combat. We're tanky, but we trade that off with usually damage in melee. Because I'm and then like if you don't go for those builds, you go the more melee centric builds, you kind of get into a effective trading problem where you kind of get hit by every tech piece a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm obviously a little bit skewed towards tanky fast gun, as it were. So those are like our core problems are like legitimately fast pressure and getting touched in bad ways, and then how do I say this? We don't mind 3-inch deep strike. We don't mind a lot of like the little tech pieces. We just shoot them. But like jail lists are scary.
Yeah. So pressure, just pressure.
Or like lists that are like turn one stage, turn 2 in your DZ like type lists, like debatably Imperial Knights, right? Or like not really Chaos Knights. Chaos Knights aren't real.
Man, those are the hot takes we come here for. Just Josh deciding what exists and what doesn't exist in the world.
for Chaos Knights. When a DDA is 3 failed saves away from killing your premier unit, I don't know, man.
Yeah,
I've killed him in
the only
Overwatch before. I
chassis.
don't know.
The only chassis you got. All right, so we have talked about that. So of course, pretty safe to assume the current best build are Hypercrypt, being built around SK DDAs, single monolith bits and pieces.
Not monolith right now, but yeah, DDAs. King goes in and out of the build depending on how I feel about him. But like the DDAs are the mainstay. The Locust Heavy with Enigmatics and the Locust Lord is a very good piece.
No longer
I've been
two of
looking at
now.
Vault recently. Hex marks are great. Death marks are great. The Immortals are fine if you bring Xeris, but Xeris himself is a little overcosted right now for what he does.
Yeah.
Hyperface is where I'm leaning, though there is a okay. I love the crack cocaine of OBS and failings. It's just look, okay. It just tickles me pink, okay, to have to dark horse a little bit, okay. Like, ooh, well, what if we just took some night sides and we said, hey, turn 1, we're gonna hit 9-inch charges. If we do, we do. If we don't, we don't. That's okay too.
What are you using? Are you just talking Lich Guard? You're just gonna beam in Lich Guard turn 1 and just send it? Yeah, baby.
30 Lich Guard, 3 DDA, Silent King. It's the build.
Man, I don't even know what that army does. I don't even know what Phalanx does.
Well, I'll say it like this: you have one important stratagem, and that's -1 damage on the Silent King. And then they have the Oath of Moment, but instead of rerolls, it's +1 to wound. And then they have like your character, like Renegade Raiders has your unit gets precision against characters. Couple other like cute strats, but their core thing is, I would say the core reason to bring them is the -1 damage on your tank chassis, and then just playing a pretty legitimate game of Warhammer. Doesn't always work. Realistically, like Awakened is still better if you want to play legitimate, and I do fundamentally believe that. You can go work for the like Walter Langendorf build. Like I've talked to him, and I don't understand how he wins games. Frankly, I don't. But the man is putting up wins consistently, and I truly and utterly believe it's because Scorpic Destroyers are the most broken model in the game. They're not actually. Really? They're blenders. They just kill things.
Unpack this.
30% chance to kill a Land Raider with Armor of Contempt is quite good for 170 points.
I agree with most of what you said there, especially with some of the more durable aspects of the game being removed. I mean, they can't go in and kill a unit of Cursed Cultists. They'll just go in, kill a bunch of the 1 wound idiots, and then die. They couldn't really crack Bulgrin or Deathwing Knights, but when those things get, fundamentally, if you've got one less unit of those, even if you're all in on them, unless you're John Lennon, and man, your Scorpex all of a sudden feel a lot better right now, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, okay, I should go back to like other problems and things that were pseudo fixed. Like accursed cultists were a huge problem. Like AC/DC spam was something that I could not break unless I teched into it, basically, and you can't tech into that. Ancestors was the sad thing.
Correct.
And them only being able to blood surge once it's a breath of fresh air to being able to play the game. You can actually kill them now, and it means that something that's more along like the Liam VSL, like Veterans of the Long War, or like a more cute, what's it called? The Vashtor's army is ironically good with Mauler Fiends and like 1 Corn Lord of Skulls. There's like other CSM builds that are good, but we can deal with them now, is the short answer. Like that matchup got like EV went up 10% on my matrix, as it were.
Yeah, excellent. Did I hear you mention the Vault as being takeable?
Yes. So
okay, I'm going to say to you the Vaults aren't real, but please tell me I'm wrong.
So okay, they are and they aren't. So I've been talking to Andy, whatever his last name is, Quasquin, Viz on Discord, and he is a huge Vault enjoyer, and I have played it at a couple events now, and it's done okay. I've lost only to user error, if I'm being honest. And how do I say this? The Vault is not price efficient. It's not. It is not price efficient in any way. It is 425
quite the opposite, in fact.
It's 425 points, and it's only, it's a knight chassis, basically. Yeah. But what it lets you do is it lets you 3-inch touch the edge of a wall and see through it. And that is very valuable. And the volume that it provides with the Tesla coils, along with the flamer and the blast from the gun if necessary, on its own solves 80% of your horde problems. The exception to this is what's it called? Black Templars, but I don't foresee that being strong in the meta.
No, you won't be. It already showed that it wasn't. So I had so many Black Templars people that I talked to, all scrambling to jump on Olivier's list post WTC. Olivier's list was practiced and performed for 4-round events with a support staff. It almost killed the man playing that thing for like the 11 rounds or whatever crazy amount it was. And I've had a lot of people who've come and with different variants of that list. And I keep telling them 60 to 80, don't go for the 100, 60 to 80 for singles. You will clock yourself out. You're actually you're exposing yourself to your opponent, like getting you in combat early and just making you pile and consolidate with every one of your units. And all of a sudden it's turn 3, you're out of clock and you lose the game.
Yeah, and I think you lose efficiency if you don't go full whole hog on it. Like,
correct. In addition, it's not very fun. It's boring. It's real boring. Really stale, and gets old very quick.
Getting back into the Necrons bit of it, though, that is why the vault is good. And there's one more thing that I forgot to mention: is the point per pickup is very important, and it allows you to redeploy your army very effectively, which is another thing, as well as the touching in with Titanic into a ruin to see past it being very valuable. And that is why, even though the vault itself is a bad model and not points per like damage or points per toughness effective necessarily, it both allows you to increase your points per pickup, it allows you to have extra reach, and it allows you to play into the tank skew that is that can be a hyperphase list. There's also the warrior style builds and the builds with immortals, and there's tons of infantry styles in hyperphase as well. But I'm talking about. I would say the vault should only go in like a more tank skewy gunline build.
Yeah. Yep, I definitely agree with that. And it seems like the Necron build, because you talk about that all-important points per pickup, you want to be, at a minimum, if you're building a hypercrypt list, you want to be able to pick up 1,000 points to your list. You want the option to pick up half your army and just redeploy it, chuck it somewhere else. I think that's really important. That's really, really, really important to identify. I love that you brought that up.
It is an important metric for you generally. And this is a problem that I've talked about, I think, in the last episode, where hyperphase struggles with like true pressure, like shove in, you have one turn to deal with me. But like, if you do, you sacrifice one unit, you move block, and then you go, I'm metavacking anywhere else on the board now. I'm getting the Terran meta, whatever the metavac ship is, and we're picking up now, right? Yeah.
I love the StarCraft reference.
And then we drop over here, and that's just, it allows for you to solve pressure. I'm a little more worried about that in modern 40K because of secret mission. Very, very significant and relevant nerf.
Yep.
It basically, it makes secret missions a lot less enticing. Like 40s aren't just auto now. Like on Burden of Trust, you're still gonna do it, because if you don't do a secret mission on Burden of Trust, you're actually just losing 20 points. But
That's true. Because everyone's just like giving each other 5s or 0s on primary, right? Until
that's the lowest scoring mission in the game. It's awful.
Yeah, it is. All right, we're going to have one last question, then we're going to finish this up, and it is in the competitive tier list. So S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier. Where would you put Necrons?
A tier, solid A tier. Top of A. I would say it's like, I think for what it's worth, Arnivore got it right in like Sisters and Guard are at the top. I do fundamentally believe that. I think that Tower somewhere up there. I think that some version of Marine, I'm not sure what version it's going to end up being, but like Marine builds homogenized to a certain extent is good there.
It's DALB. It's DALBA, right?
We're like I would say we're like top 5. We're filtering near the top of A, in my opinion. Like we're very, very well positioned in the meta. People say GSC are there. I stand by until I play a GSC player that can make me scared. They aren't real. But I think we're very, very good.
I'm very similar. Until I get clowned by GSC, I think they're very good, but I've yet to see anything but players who are already considered to be very good doing well with them. Like players who would do well with just about anything they decided to play.
Hey, for what it's worth, Drukhari are good. They're still wrong.
All right, my man.
Spark engagement in the comments, baby.
Oh man, I'm gonna get the comments are gonna be wild on this one.
Uh,
Anyway, Josh, that'll do us for the first part of our recording. We're gonna go over and record part 2. Hopefully you guys will come and join us as well. If not, sit tight. We're gonna have some Votann up next. Thanks, Josh.
I'll see you down under.
Dude. G'day, lovely, lovely peoples. We are back with our Votann expert for our State of the Superfaction episode, the beautiful Drew Salzborn. How you doing, brother? Welcome.
Oh, I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
My absolute pleasure to have you on. Currently ranked in the top 3 in Votann in the ITC, I believe. I think that's where I got your name from, even though I've heard your name kicking about before.
Last I checked, I am currently number 1. So,
oof, spicy. Got the big bugs on the show. Yeah, why wouldn't you? Are you headed to Atlanta in a couple of months? Well, a couple of weeks. Jeez.
No, I think at last count, I have been 1 spot away from getting the golden ticket 3 times.
Dang.
Yep. The person that placed ahead of me got the golden ticket, and I did not. And so it's unfortunate, but it is the way it is.
Well, I'm sure there's still many people out there who are quite jealous that anybody gets a chance to contend 3 times in a single season for a ticket.
Fair enough.
Most of us get, especially down under and stuff, lucky who get 1 swing at it. In saying that, you are from I think you said the Northeast, up in the New England kind of region.
So that's currently my current residence. Originally, I am from Vancouver, Canada.
Ooh, okay.
Yep. Fabulous. So I'm a fellow citizen of the British Commonwealth.
That's filthy colonists. Colonies, rather. We're not the colonists. But we are here to talk stunties, the potato men, the Votann.
Yep,
now,
the squats.
Straight in, I'm going to give you a chance to plug anything you'd like to plug. I understand you've got a club you're trying to get off the ground. Go for it.
Yeah. No, New England, we've kind of been not... how do I say it? Like, not many people have kind of broken out of New England, but we have actually a fantastic array of players, and so we're trying to formalize and get a team together and kind of get New England on the world stage. And so we have a club, Nerd, which New England Regional Degenerates, and we just formed it probably less than a year ago. And my guess is we will take the world by storm here coming shortly.
Dude, fantastic. And the name? Chef's kiss. Chef's freaking kiss, mate. All right, let's jump into the Votann talk. And straight up, in your expert opinion, where are they at in the meta right now?
So, if I were to describe Votann, it would be that they are S tier if dice only ever rolled statistical average.
What a take.
Yep. I have been trying to get Votann, right. My goal has basically been to get to number 1. And I've taken them to quite a few majors and GTs. And what I've kind of learned, having played literally at this point hundreds of games with Votann, is they are probably the most... I play 10 armies, just as a side note. They are, of the armies that I've played, the most affected by statistical anomalies.
Yeah.
Votann roll very few dice, but each dice is impactful.
Like the ceiling for damage potential per dice you roll is absurd.
Right. Our chaff fire is damage too. Like bolt cannons are our literal just random shots. Oh yeah, let me throw some bolt cannons.
But super impacted by things like stealth, things like armor contempts, things like reactive moves. There's not many ways to lower the bell curve for Votann, right? You can just pretty much chuck you either have oath counters on them, or you got CP to spend for was it lethal or sustained? That's pretty much it.
The sustained, and just things like getting a dice spike low, or your opponent. It's like, all right. And so it's hard to kind of because there's no dice manipulation. We have access to so few rerolls, but the potential, right? So many armies when the dice work in your favor, and you have the skill set and the right build. There's really no hard counter to Votann. Votann, like for a team's army, I think absolutely one of the strongest armies in the game for teams, because you can throw them into anything. There's like, I can't really think Thousand Suns. I mean, just as almost everybody's natural predator, Votann can still play, especially now that they had the nerf, because they can kill Magnus, single activation, single Hearthguard, bring Magnus down. From a team's standpoint, they're probably S tier, and in the singles standpoint, they're still. I think they're the one thing holding them back really is just dealing with situations where you're a specific situation, right? You're trying to accomplish this, you're trying to kill this unit, trying to XYZ, and your dice just roll slightly low. Being able to recover from that is the one thing holding Votann back from being truly S tier, is that they are the lack of dice rerolls, the lack of manipulation.
It's so that's exactly right. See, I think they are as lethal as they should be. I think they lack adaptability, flexibility, jank. They lack well-roundedness in the game, so to speak.
Yeah, they are. A lot of people say, like, the term honest. They have so few tricks.
Yeah.
They are, which we can get into in a little bit. The way I get around my version of jank, the way that I've kind of built into them to help mitigate the lack of rerolls, is they are one of the best stat check armies in the game.
Oh yeah. Tell us more about that. How do you work that into your list outside of just taking, triple land forward, so to speak?
So one of the most successful builds I've had is absolutely leaning into triple hecatons. I was having a conversation with someone the other day about land raiders and the issues they're having with land raiders, and that's kind of when it dawned on me, because I sat there and I thought about it. I was like, why are hecatons so much better than land raiders? And I realized it's because they're 1.5 inches narrower.
Oh yeah, yep. So they just play the boards.
You can actually maneuver them around the board. So I have been a huge fanboy of triple hecatons, but in addition to that, I run basically everything in my list. One of the most successful lists. Now I've spread the whole spectrum. I've done literally every combination you can with Votann, and building
that's like 4 different lists, yeah.
Oh, I'm
just joking that they don't have a lot to work with.
Not to get too off the rails of line of thought, but every data sheet of theirs is 100% valid.
I will say that they've done a really the internal balance of Votann is actually really freaking good at the moment, because every unit is takeable.
I would drop Grimnir's 10 points per model, and then every data sheet is 100% interchangeable. But to go back to toughness 12 and then toughness 6. So everything in my army is either Hearthguard, a Pioneer, or a Thunderkin, and then the land forts. And once you have that spread, so few armies, because anti-infantry weapons dramatically drop off once you hit that T6 threshold.
Agreed. Yep.
And now your entire army is essentially requiring anti-tank weapons to deal with. It's your opponent. Your opponent literally has to sit there and go, do I fire las cannons into Thunderkin, or do I fire them into land forts? And once you're in that realm, you're in a fantastic position.
Yeah, I agree. I really like that idea as well, especially I love that idea for teams. That is an incredibly good teams list.
How it generally plays, so teams notwithstanding, but how it generally plays in the singles is when you're in a match, if your opponent cannot match that stat, it's easy pickings, right? You just kind of breeze through the match. And then when you fight an army that has the ability to deal with that, Now it's like your conventional game of Warhammer. Now you're like, okay, let's play a normal game. And because even if they match your stat, the Votann just inherently are so capable of dealing with anything that your opponent has. That, that's kind of been the closest thing, going back to jank. The closest thing I have to jank is just the hard stat check.
And they're saying you're describing jank as in jank in list build and list skews rather than jank on the tabletop via dynamics.
Correct.
I love that you've expanded that into terminology to make it fit what Votann can do rather than lamenting what they can't, which I unfortunately find a lot of Votann players doing in different areas. I think they're in quite a good position at the moment. What are the downsides of Votann? We've pretty much gone over the good sides. We've gone over what they've got going for them. What are the downsides of Votann at the moment? Where do you see the weaknesses in the current metagame?
So downside is absolute. The one thing that tournament after tournament that just I sit there and I go, ugh, is the lack of rerolls, the lack of dice manipulation. It basically kind of going through my brain of why I lost a game. And I hate to, a lot of people use this as an excuse, but when I play Dark Eldar or I play Genestealer Cult, I go, yep, I did this wrong. But when I play Votann, I go, the dice failed me. And it's kind of a quasi frustrating, like one of my good friends who also plays Votann, he's like, yeah, I don't play him anymore because of that. And I was like, yeah, I don't blame you. Again, going to the lack of volume, that each one of our dice is so impactful. And your opponent rolls just one extra 4-up and vulnerable. And that's the difference between killing Magnus or not killing him. And Votann have no workaround with that. Like I went to a GT with Kroot Hunting Pack, and I had triple hammerheads. And it had been a while since I'd been back on the Tau train. And my hammerheads were hitting on 2s, re-rolling. Shadow Sun was nearby, so they re-rolled the hit rolls. Shadow Sun re-roll. And I sat there and went, oh my God. I was like, I forgot what this feels like to have a 97% chance of getting damage through.
To do the thing I spent the points on the year to do. Yeah, I get that. And I do think, like, in the scheme of things, like, I do think, because a lot of people will give advice that, like, oh, you should never blame the dice, blah, blah, blah. And while you shouldn't use that as your crutch and your excuse, if genuinely your army doesn't have recourse, like, because if you're playing a shooting army and it don't shoot good, can you call it a good shooting army?
Like Votann have, in my opinion, one of the, if not the best, detachment in the game. Their enhancements, their strats are phenomenal. Right.
I 100% agree with that. I think you could only argue Thousand Suns have, like, slap down guaranteed a better indexed attachment, like for buffs and enhancement wise, than Votann. Votann is way up there.
Yep. But
Gladius is probably up there too.
I don't know. I just being able to fall back, do everything, being the sustain to the extra AP. Like, I went into Knights. I brought, we talked this a little bit before, but just to change it up, I went stat check complete opposite direction, and I ran Horde Votann.
Yes, I'm interested to hear about this. So is that because can you take 20 blocks of Hearthkin?
No. In 9th edition, actually went to ACO, and I brought when they were Hearthkin were 20, I brought 120 Hearthkin. I cursed the sky when I saw Hearthkin go from 20 max to 10 max.
10 max, yeah. They did, like, it's so weird. Like, 9th edition, they made sure everybody had a unit of 20 something in their army, like 20 Sisters of Battle, 20 demons, whatever, and like 20 Hearthguard. And then they were just like, let's just completely undo that in 10th edition. It's so interesting to me and so wild. I really want to ask somebody why that happened. But yeah, sorry, continue, mate.
Yeah, and I on that, I'd heard that Games Workshop was going to have 2 boxes to be a data sheet, right? You buy 2 boxes of anything, and that's going to be what you can get as a data sheet. And it's like, okay, well, Hearthkin are 10 in a box. Nope, they decided. But in that game, I had, the 30 Hearthguard, and I fought knights, and I charged in with only a couple. It was a champion and a few Hearthguard still alive. He had, Canis had killed at most. And I was like, okay, well, you're double judged. I'm going to spend the CP to make me AP 4.
Okay, yeah.
And it's just like, basically they're all devastating wounds at that point. Right. This, just kind of finished the train of thought of how impactful and effective the Votan, see, Tower of my other main army, but the Votan, the package of Votan strats. And if you gave Votan a strat for reroll hits if the target was judged, you would break the arm. Like they would catapult immediately to S tier.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you gave them Oath of Moment on every judged unit, yeah.
Or just like one unit is like, hey, let me get full rerolls to hit against that target. Right. So a hecaton being like, yeah, that one's going to get full rerolls to hit, and then that is the negative. Is it constantly not cripples me, but it's consistently a reason why I lose a game is my dice spike low or my opponent spikes high with saves
at a critical time.
And the volume of dice is just so low. Well, Hearthguard notwithstanding, because like Hearthguard...
Yeah, they're the opposite. Well, Pioneers as well. Pioneers throw a lot of dice, but your anti-tank, the things that you need, like if I don't kill this box... this box of this immolator, so I can account for the dominions. I'm going to get my objective flipped. I'm going to take a bunch of wounds in the meantime, and I'm going to get tank shocked. And then you're like, well, none of that stuff happened, I guess.
Yeah, the problem with Pioneers in that capacity is overwhelmingly you're taking them to be action monkeys, right?
It's because they had this duality of purpose, and you can only take 3 units of them, and then they're your best.
Bring the 6 squads. But then you have this weird moment. You draw containment, and you're sitting there like, well, the Pioneers can get within 9 inches, but that's 18 autocannon shots I miss, and that's a horrible decision to have to make on the like in a game.
It shows the weakness of the unit options. That shows the lack of depth of unit options. That you've only got like 10 models in your army, and most of them are characters.
Yeah, what I've kind of learned is I don't like to make that decision. So what I typically do is I have a Sagittor with warriors, and they're my dedicated action monkeys, right? They scout and prep for containment. They scout and whatever. And so when I bring Pioneers, they're there to go and actually chuck grenades, go be harassment, do damage, and last on the list to go do an action.
Yeah, correct. Well, you've got Jaegers now too, which would probably have been a new lease on life for you.
So I have had really mixed feelings with Jaegers, to be honest. They are far and away the lowest damage output of any unit in the index. And so like even warriors, when you've got them with the high las rifle, the rotary cannon, which I have found to be the best of the weapon options. Like even as the little 50-point package, you have the other 50 points that are off cleansing or containing, but then you've got like those 5 guys. So they have a very respectable, and the leader's got the plasma. Jaegers, right, especially with the increase, you're paying 90 points to essentially not get very much in terms of any damage output. You've got the sniper rifle, which is effectively useless, and the only real gun that they have that is anything to write home about is the 1 missile launcher shot. And right, there's the obvious benefit of them being infiltrators and that clearly has advantages. But I find one of the things that I've come to learn is, right, when I have that scout threat and people put their infiltrators in a line right in front of my army to be like, you can't scout. And I think I sit there and I go, well, I wasn't planning to anyway. And now you've just sacrificed a unit for me. right?
Yeah.
If I want the CP, I'm going to judge that infiltrator unit. If I don't want the CP, right? But now here's your action monkey, and I've just picked it up. And I find like baiting people to stop my scout, interfering with the ability for people to deploy their own infiltrators to stop my scout is of kind of lower value, in my opinion. The one time, I will say the one caveat, the one time that Jaegers are worth 200 or 300 points is when you are fighting Space Wolf, Thunderwolf cavalry.
Oh yeah, absolutely needed.
That is the one match where you're like, thank God I brought Jaegers, or
Praise be. Yeah.
or crap, I didn't bring Jaegers. I bring them occasionally, but for the most part, I find that right now, especially, that they're cost parity with Pioneers. I sit and while I'm building the list, and I go, I'd still rather just have Pioneers, right? Because Jaegers just they have essentially negligible damage output, and so you're paying 90 points to have an infiltrating unit.
But then if you're going to go to a 6-player event, you're playing 90 points to not auto lose. Should you get this XYZ pairing? Which may be worth it for most people, may not be.
No, they end up in my list about half the time, and just because it's one of these things, like when you're building the list and you sit there and you go, maybe I won't pair into Space Wolves. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, my list feels more complete if I just run that third squad of Pioneers. So Jaegers are definitely a tool in the toolbox.
Yeah. All right. So that will almost wrap us up for this first segment. So in your mind, if someone was going to go to a GT tomorrow, what would you say that list should look like? Like your best all-comers list. What's in it? So
the best all-comers list.
Of course, this is just in your opinion, and probably respective of your meta, etc.
Yep. I would say, like, you just bringing triple hecatons. You can it. So many armies cannot deal with that just at face value. The Hecaton is in my opinion, one of the best data sheets in the game. And Hearthguard. So what I typically do as a strategy that just so consistently works, I keep finding myself going back to this as an essential strategy and just adding to the fringes of it. I run triple Hecatons and then double units of 10 Hearthguard that are in Deep Strike. And I beeline the Hecatons straight towards the objectives. And they're such a hard target. My opponent has to commit versus to be able to have any realistic chance of damaging the Hecatons. And once they've exposed themselves, the Hearthguard drop down and just pick up the heavy hitters that revealed themselves to try to damage the Hecatons. And 9 times out of 10, you break your opponent's back at that point. And then you just mop up, dominate the primary and then accomplish secondaries. And it's a formula that is just, got me to the Shadow Round of LVO, plays very well at Nova, right? Like, it's just, I keep going back to that paradigm. Triple Hecatons, 20 Hearthguard in reserve, and then just build from there. Like, take that foundation. And there's no army in the game that you will sit across from and go, well, I don't have a chance.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that for Votann as well, because that seems like something that in many other, since Votann's launch, that I feel like they've had nothing but greens and reds in a team's pairing matrix. Like, I'm going to absolutely slaughter this guy, or I am so effed. I have no play. And so it's really refreshing to hear that they've got builds out there like that. But anyway, that's going to wrap us up for this part 1. We're going to go over and record the second segment here. We're going to answer some Patreon questions and get a little bit deeper with Drew on his Votann brewing. All right, mate. Thank you very much for coming on, dude. Appreciate it.
Oh, no, it's been my pleasure.
And we are back with our third segment covering the Greenskins, the Orkses, the wonderful main man from the Pacific North, whatever the hell, Lucas Troller. Hello, mate.
Hello, sir. How you doing?
Good. What is the Portland area, Pacific North?
It's Pacific
something?
Northwest.
West?
That's where I'm at.
It's not
Yes.
that north, though. It's kind of the middle.
It's
very
well,
confusing.
so if you don't count Canada, which is a little bit silly that we're not counting Canada, but I guess we're more like the Pacific Central West if you count Canada. But yeah,
It's already confusing enough.
Yeah. North
I-
America,
I-
a wild and bewildering place.
Well, you're all just so need to have your own little bit registered. Like we all need our own little bit recognized of the great nation. And it's funny to me because it pisses Americans off so much. Where I said, "You're in the top right America, aren't you? Or you're in the middle left?" And everyone's like, "No, it's northwest east junction of the 17th solstice."
We have a special name and we need you to use it.
Yes, we do. Anyway, we're talking here about the Greenskins. But Lucas, anything cool or juicy you are doing? What's your next show on StatCheck Network?
Oh God, man, we've had a little bit of trouble lately because Tyler, my podcast mate, moved to Spain, so it's been a little bit tricky scheduling things. But I think we're gonna have some shows soon, going over some local events we're doing. Nick and I know, are going to a couple of GTs up here in Portland in the next couple of weeks. So I think in the next couple of weeks we'll do some reviews of those events. Our local scene is really growing, which is cool. We've had to travel for a lot of tournaments, so it's been great to kind of keep it local.
Mate, you ever need a ringer? Don't call me, I'm busy as hell. But
Yeah, fly across the Pacific, man, for our 50-man GT.
I'll do it. Let's go.
Gaming.
Well, I have played a GT on your coast. Funnily enough.
Yeah. Which state was it in?
I was in Washington. It was prior to LVO that year. I went and did Charity Hammer. Then there was an LVO prep event that I went to with lovely Mitch Pelham, and then jumped over the LVO.
Oh, nice. Cool.
That's right. I came second. It was nice.
Trip. Oh, sweet. Hell yeah, man.
All right, but that's enough. That's enough foreplay. Let's get on to the Greenskins. Hot takes, mate. Where are they at right now, post MFM and changes?
They're an interesting spot. I think one of the coolest parts about the codex is just how much is viable. So pre MFM, we were definitely in a kind of rough spot. Most people were just kind of spamming Warhorde and trying to get the most out of Sustained, and not really taking Mega Knobs, just taking some of the other good units, Beast Bosses and Boy Squads led by War Bosses, Knobs, just trying to get as much value out of the hard-hitting units as possible. Part of this was because Orks just had a tough time in melee matchups. It's kind of all we did, but we still got beat out by armies like Blood Angels and Dark Angels. And Necrons as well were tough for us to muscle through. So we just needed all the oomph we could get, and the Sustained Detachment was the best place to do that. One of the coolest things coming through the MFM the main changes that Orks got were mainly points oriented. So a lot of our staple units went down a little bit, and then a lot of the units that weren't seen hardly at all, like Mega Knobs, came down quite a bit. And then to some alt detachments like Dreadmob, they got a lot of points drops as well. So one of the coolest parts about Orks to me right now is just how much you could do with them. There are like 3 or 4 detachments for which I don't think there's a very clear winner. Those are Green Tide, Dreadmob, Bully Boys, and Warhorde. I think you can make solid arguments for all of them, and they each have weaknesses as well. So that's where Orks are. Just like a variety of really strong builds with a lot you can do.
It's so surprising to me because if I had to have a prediction coming out of this, prior to this points changes, I would have been like, I bet you they try and make Squig Hogs work with all the downsides of having to go around walls and being like faux Thundercav. I bet you they try and make the Squig Hog more viable. And it's the only one that got nothing. Everything else, even the good ones, the ones that were already good, got slight reductions. I mean, I have no explanation for why the shock attack gun, the best unit in the Dreadmob, went down in points. No explanation whatsoever. I
certainly don't think Dreadmob players are complaining. They got some great stuff in this slate.
Correct. I mean, I'm not complaining either. Give them more. I mean, more reductions. What do they have that is going for them apart from the list diversity? Like, what are they doing that is strong in the meta at the moment?
Stuff. a lot of units. Things
Okay,
we were
cool.
already taking went down, which is a sign that you should keep taking them. Units like boys and beast nagas that were making their way into lots of different lists just got less expensive. So like Green Tide list, for example, my WTC list was 70 boys, went down
Mhm.
like what 40-ish points. And so you can like kind of bodge some units around and get 1 or 2 extra whole units in there,
Yep, that's big.
which is a really big deal when part of your faction strength is the amount of stuff you can field. Every unit you're increasing like kind of just multiplies your chances of winning a game.
Mm.
So I think in particular, detachments like Warhorde and Bully Boys really get a lot out of just taking a lot of units. Both boys and Beast Naga boys went down, and just spamming OC right now, I think, is a really solid way to deal with some of the shooting armies out there, like Votan, Sisters Guard, that are just trying to field big dumb tanks. If you just run more units that they can really activate on reasonably, if you try to hide from them, that kind of thing, you just have enough unit count that they can't deal with it all. In theory,
Mm.
Um,
Critical
so-
mass stuff.
yeah, exactly. Especially when every unit has a transport, so it's like, okay, you got to kill the car, and then you've got to
Yeah.
kill the 10 guys inside, and then you've got to kill the war boss who is doing most of the damage.
Mm.
You can kind of just bog them down through weighted numbers, is the idea.
So, what are the downsides? Where are they coming up against brick walls, and what can't they do? Like, what are they not good into archetype wise?
So those kind of stuff-based lists where you're taking lots of boys and you're taking lots of trucks and maybe you have some storm boys and war bikers for scoring, they really struggle with dealing damage. So there is a fine line right now between you got to have some hard hitters, because the other armies that aren't hull shooting based, like the Votan, Sisters, and Guard, you might run into a couple Blood Angels or Dark Angels people at your or Death Guard is the one that's really challenging for us right now
Yeah.
at your GT, who just body you if you're just running a bunch of idiots. Like I've been run over by Death Guard so many times in the last couple weeks, it's not even funny. So that's really where you're going to struggle. And I think where a lot of Orc players are going to have to make hard choices is between, we have all these really efficient, nice, cheap units, but you probably want some shooting to deal with Death Guard, and you probably want to keep Death Guard honest at least, and you want some Mega Knobs to help deal with Sanguinary Guard and things like that. Because if you just try to deal with them with boys, there's only so far you can go, unless you're playing Green Tide, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Which we will definitely have at some point, either on this part or the next. So let's say you were going to a GT tomorrow and you're playing Orks. What archetype would that be? What detachment would it be, and what would that look like?
So I think the most well-rounded Orcs lists, and the ones that give you the best chance of winning a GT, are either Bully Boys or Warhorde.
Tell us why.
I do. Everyone who's heard me talk about Orcs knows that I have a love-hate relationship with Warhorde. Let's to put it very, very mildly. I hate how go first dependent it is. Because it's so, you really need the WA to get your damage in. Telegraphing your opponent your game plan when you go second is really rough with Warhorde. And I think, in my opinion, it's like a deal breaker for me. I don't think it gives you a good chance of winning a singles event when, there's a very good chance you could be going second 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And if you do that into a melee army, they have all the agency over the game. That's why I like Bully Boys. I think Bully Boys, with lots of war bosses and lots of mega knobs, people can run knobs as well. You can still have that unit spam archetype. Units like Boys with a war boss in a truck, that's 2 units for under 200 points. Or I guess no, it's just about 200 points. That's fairly tough, very flexible, because it has 2 different WAs. With the new FAQ, the war boss gets his extra attacks on the WA turn, even if he's in a car, which is a huge deal. This unit is, it's not great at punching hard targets. Like, it'll kind of bounce off of Deathwing Knights and Sanguinary Guard. But against any like mid to low tier threat, it just completely bodies it. So units like those are really great for just creating space on the board. And with your double WA, you can use the first WA pretty guilt-free to just clear screens, buy yourself some space. Gaskell comes in with his Meganob bodyguard. Deep strike teleporta boss with his 6 Meganob buddies ingresses in and kind of breaks your opponent's back. So that would be the archetype that I think is the strongest for singles right now. It does have some problematic matchups. I think those, the power armor armies that either have AOC or -1 damage are really tough, but you got to try to play those by the points because you have more units than them. So if you just like play a move blocky, grindy defensive style, I still think those matchups you can squeak out a win. Whereas some of the other like the shooting hull-based matchups, especially if you're playing on denser terrain, you can really lock them out of a game early, especially if you go first. Just take over the table, prevent them from interacting with the objectives, and swarm them.
I like it. I like it a lot, and I like a lot of what you're talking about there. So you mentioned Green Tide a couple of times, and I agree with you. I think Warhorde and Bully Boys give you the biggest spread of play and the biggest ability to get, maintain, and disrupt primary, which I think is the core of being good at the game at the moment. It's not as much as weight of damage and rolling enough dice and stuff. It is establishing supremacy on the primary and then hurting your opponent's score. So fringe build wise, and I guess the fringe builds we're talking about is the other two detachments you mentioned, Dread Mob and Green Tide. Tell us a little bit what they can do at the moment and where their ups and downs are.
Okay. So I'll start with Dread Mob because I'm A, less familiar with them, and B, a little bit less passionate. So we'll just knock them out real quick. I do like Dread Mob they're a little bit more of a volatile archetype than Bully Boys, certainly Bully Boys and Green Tide, and even than Warhorde, because it really just depends how dense your terrain is. Right? Like if you're playing on, if you're going to a team event and you're going to be playing on at least some of the tables with that are like GW tables or something like that, then there's definitely some of those layouts where your Ludas and your shock attack guns and your mech guns and your killicans can get some real value just like laying down the hurt on people. And, a lot of those units went down a lot of points. So you're also now affording more trucks. You're affording more Storm Boys. That Zodgrod unit with reactive move, good God, that is so obnoxious to deal with.
Correct. It is dumb.
Gretchen or battle line. That's more important than ever, right? Having battle line units to deny secret objectives. A lot of people are playing mission packs with Gretchen don't really care about stalwarts, but they do care about swift action. Advanced in action with Gretchen is insane. A lot of mission packs have like the ritual swift action. So spamming, like a squad or two of 20 Gretchen and then 4 squads of 10 in Dread Mob is like 300 points maximum, and it gives you an absolute ton of two OC bodies that are relatively fast. Gretchen are insane in Dread Mob, first of all. And then you back it up with Ludas, you back it up with mech guns. Maybe you run like 1 Gorkanaut for counter charge and some nice 2 damage shooting, although the whole detachment's built of 2 damage shooting, really. And you just try to like control the board and force your opponent to go where you want them to go by controlling the sight lines. And then when they go there, you charge them with Gretchen and you'd be really annoying. The WA in this detachment is purely incidental, and really it's just there for advance and charge on Gretchen and 5-up infil on Gretchen, frankly. You just get them all. You make your opponent stand in the place you want them to go in. You pop the WA, so your Gretchen are really tough, and you rush them all in and you bog them down and you say, okay, you're not scoring primary anymore. And that's really what this detachment's trying to do. And honestly, it's a very cool way to play Orks. It's a little unreliable, unfortunately, because a lot of the shooting pieces are low AP and relatively low strength, and they only have re-rolls when the opponent's on an objective and your Luda unit's not in a car. So actually dealing damage to the hard targets is like a multi-step process. But if you get the whole Rube Goldberg machine to work, you can really blow people up. So I think a lot of Dread Mob pilots will find some mileage there once they really become intimately aware of all the cogs of the detachment. It's cool. I like Dread Mob a lot.
I find some interesting parallels. So I just recorded the previous segment with a Votan player who was talking about how Votan are extremely good, have one of the highest damage ceilings possibility-wise in the game, but they throw so few dice in instance that they're so exposed to swings of variance. And I feel like Dread Mob is similar for a different reason. Their damage bands, like the damage brackets of strength, AP, and damage that they do are relatively narrow because you only have like here are Flash Kits, they only have this. Here are Looters, they only have this. Here's a Gorkanaut, only does this. And a lot of your strats and stuff will make those things better, but because you're throwing an ungodly amount of dice, it seems to work. but for the same reasons that Votan are exposed to, I guess, overly exposed to, your opponent doing things like minus just a hit, armor contempt, feel no pains, and things like that. Orks feel like they're in the same issue, right? I've had games where Dread Mob has felt oppressive as hell because they just roll a little hot. And then I've had games where they haven't done one dang half of a thing with 2,000 points, like for multiple turns.
Yep. Yeah, exactly right. And because, like you mentioned, all those defensive things, AOC, -1 damage, feel no pains, like all of these are very, very crippling to Dread Mob damage, right? You got Flash Kits, Strength 6, AP 1-2 damage. You got Ludas, Strength 8, AP 1-2 damage. You've got this Gorkanaut you might be running for countercharge, Strength 6, AP 1-2 damage. Like it's all low AP, middling strength, 2 damage. So -1 damage is a huge problem. AOC is a huge problem. All that kind of stuff. Like high toughness, also a problem. You have the shock attack guns now, and you're absolutely running 3 of these, to be clear, which are very good. But they're also very swingy, right? Your opponent has all of the agency of whether or not they want to stand on an objective to give your Ludas reroll to hit. What happens if your opponent doesn't stand on an objective? Well, then they pop smoke and you utterly fail to kill a rhino for like 2 turns in a row.
Yep.
So that's personally why I wouldn't recommend it for, frankly, either teams or singles. I think you can still do well with the detachment. It's just like it produces very unstable results.
Yeah, totally agree. All right. So you have alluded to where I think Orks shine the most at the moment, which I think is in teams. I think they have some extraordinarily bad matchups out there in the wide waters right now. But if you can just swim in your own little swimming pool and have some picks, I think Orks can be superstars in a lot of different team formats. How do you feel about that statement?
I think so. I think their strength over the summer, basically since the Codex has come out, is as a blunter. The Codex is relatively inflexible and one-dimensional, but it is very good in that one dimension. Like it has a lot of units that are all relatively tough. They do a lot of damage for the points, and you can field a lot of them. And with the points drops last month, it just got even more. That became even more so the case. And I think in detachments like Bully Boys and Green Tide, you can just field a ton of units and just score a points floor, basically no matter what, as long as you're not playing into Dark Angels and Death Guard. Everything else is pretty playable. Excuse me.
Yeah, I do like that you mentioned those two. The two that have a lot of fights first and merely more better than you do. Yikes. All right, so if you were going to take, let's say you were going to Champs Cup, 8-player teams or WTC, what detachment would you take to those if it was happening tomorrow?
Oh, interesting. I think I would take Green Tide. I'm still in the exploratory phase with this kind of MSU Bully Boys build. I found some things that I really like. I found some things that I find a little bit troublesome, but I know what Green Tide is and I know what it does. So I would take that just from a predictability standpoint. Which, I mean, I think some things have changed for Green Tide, to be honest, in the last couple months since I ran them in 3 months ago now, over in Belgium. Which I think we can just go ahead and dive into right now because we've covered Dread Mob now. I think Green Tide has some great sauce. I think you want to build a list still around a core of 3 to 4 squads of 20 boys. But there are some things that I definitely missed over the summer that have become even more important now in building a good Green Tide list. The first of which is, I guess first in terms of like a terminology type of thing. I think people have been kind of realizing in 10th edition now, there's like a skirmishing phase of the game right in the early turns where your JPI fight the enemy, striking scorpions, or your flash gets fight their, cultists or whatever. There's like, you trade a couple units in the early game. And it's all about positioning and trying to get your effective skirmishers into theirs. 10-man units of boys in Green Tide are fantastic at this, and I completely missed it over the summer. And there's a couple reasons for that. The first of which is they come standard with the 5-up invulnerable save. So against enemy skirmishers that might otherwise have a pip or 2 of AP to kill your 5-up armor save boys, you just shrug off a third of it no matter what. That's fantastic. And with the revive stratagem, you're getting back a minimum of 3 guys. So it's very, very hard to get your OC2 boys to lose their OC as a result of battle shock. So the fact that they are leadership 7 doesn't really matter that much. If your opponent comes in and kills 8 boys and your knob and the one guy hit back and killed 2 guys, you then resurrect, hold the point, sticky it, and then fall back behind a wall and continue resurrecting.
Yeah.
And this unit of 10 boys also went down 5 points, which doesn't seem that big of a deal until you realize you're running 100 boys and you save 50 points, and that buys you another truck or whatever, So these little skirmishing units of boys are fantastic. They're what I thought I was using the flash kits for over the summer, which is early skirmishing. Flash kits are a great unit, don't get me wrong. The problem with them is they are, for all the things we were talking about in Dread Mob, right? They're very susceptible to -1 damage, AOC, -1 to hit. They hate all of those things. So as a skirmishing unit, they're actually pretty bad because they have 1 OC. They can't actually flip a point from 5 jump back intercessors all that reliably.
I'm actually liking burner boys for flipping objectives more than flash kits.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because they have the same OC. They do about the same amount of damage to something like 5 JPI or 10 guardsmen or whatever. And they're like 30 less points or whatever.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly
any Orks unit that can ride inside of a truck, take up 5 seats, and be pretty disposable is just fantastic in my opinion. So I've cut my flash kits down to 3x5 for this reason. And then I think 5 Burnos fits in that truck very well. That's a 3. So what, the Burnos are 50 points, the flash kits are 80, and the truck is 65. So that's under a 200 points for 3 different units.
Yep.
2 of which are pretty good at killing like 10 guardsmen, which is really nice.
Exactly right. And I do like having the reason I like burners as well is the Aquilon Overwatch piss off tactic.
Yep.
Which I think
100%.
is something people really need to worry about and think about now, because I think Aquilons are the reason Guard will just not have a problem with Orks for the foreseeable future, unless you specifically plan for them.
Yep. Yeah, they're definitely a hassle, unfortunately. But that just kind of is what it is,
Yeah.
They're going
until they go up to 140 points. And guess what? Still going to take them because they're that busted.
They'll still be good.
Can we just never print 3-inch? Can we just delete all 3-inch deep strikes from the game and make them all like 6-inch deep strikes instead, and none on data sheets, only stratagems? You must pay
exactly.
You must.
The big thing is not on the data sheet, because ingressing with 3-inch is such a big deal as opposed to just using a stratagem for it in your movement phase.
Exactly right. Then you have to pay a strat for it to ingress and a strat to 3-inch or 6-inch, if they go that way. And then that becomes a resource problem for people to have to plan, and possibly you don't get to do extra AP for guard, or you don't get to put someone in assault doctrine in your gladius as well as dumping down 6 inceptors or whatever it is. That would be my solution. All right, my dude, closing question for the Orks. Where do you put them now in the competitive tier list? And feel free to do the first one for singles, and then where you put them in the teams tier list.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, I think for singles, you can win events with them, but you're going to have to get some pairings luck. That's the big thing. If you're playing Green Tide or Bully Boys, you're a lot less dependent on the WA, so it doesn't really matter how many times you go first. But, if you play against a Death Guard, you basically just insta-lost. So for that reason, I think they're like probably B tier. I think they're very average.
Yep.
You can win events with them, but it will be challenging. For teams, I think they're a little bit better. They're probably like low A to mid A tier. You just take them as a big old blunter. The unfortunate reality is, most blunters you kind of want to be able to play into everything, and Orks are definitely not like that. But I think they're actually not bad at getting stable scores into things like Sisters and Guard.
Yeah.
If you just post it behind the walls, how are they really digging you out with all of your OC?
Yeah. So like in an 8-player event, they could be a very reliable second defender, like second up, and then
don't really care too much about the table. I'm just going to get 8 to 10 points.
Exactly right. At that point, the guard's not going to go into you on your table pick, because there'll still be a heavy. In which case, you can just sit. Right, you can just sit and not get dumpstered, because that's a very, very viable tactic for Orks. And I think everybody except Death Guard, like you said. I think our Space Marines can bring some of that problems, but they'd have to tech into Orks for a reason, and they should not do that. There's no reason to do that.
I think Orks have a good game into CSM actually.
Oh, good. I'm actually happy to hear that. What about your game into, say, World Eaters?
Okay, I legitimately think it's not that bad.
Good. Happy to hear.
Yeah, I think World Eaters, I've realized, really don't like being charged, because their charge bonus is really big for their damage.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, if you understand, basically you have to know what all their strength breakpoints are, and it makes things like their fight on death and their interrupt a lot less scary if you just like kind of plan appropriately. Also, Angron is hilariously one of the most bogged downable units in the game. You can literally keep him in combat with a truck and 10 Gretchen because he can't sweep it all to death when it does a 5-up invulnerable save. So if you just, all it takes is one turn of you keeping him there, and you can basically clobber the rest of their army. I think Orks have a good game into World Leaders. The Terminator build is a little more problematic because the units have more staying power, and the harder you hit them, the harder they hit you back. So the Terminator builds, I think, are a little scarier. I'd probably rate that as like a small loss in a team's format.
Yeah.
But I think your game into like the normal 8-bound style list is probably like pretty stable.
I would agree with that. With the Mo going up in points again for no reason, they're going to have less reason to take some like a big fight first unit of 20 Zerkers, which is genuinely a problem. But that's way less incentivized. In addition, you have actual screens. They have 0 of those. So like, and if they do have like 10 jackals out the front, you got some flash kits and you'll just take them out. So you can usually dictate the big fights. So I do genuinely like that. Angron is a problem, but if you do what you just said, Lucas, 100% is not a problem. Okie dokie, we're going to leave this off and go over and record another similar length segment over on part 2. Join us over there, mate. Where can people find some of your content should they wish some more troller action?
Yeah, so check out me and my 2 buddies, Nicholas Olsen-Johnson and Tyler Bortel, on the Stat Check Network at the Take All Climbers podcast. It's a little bit more of a narratively driven podcast where we focus on all our tournament journeys and growth as players. So come check us out. It's a good time.
Beautiful. And on that note, we'll see you there. And we are back, joined for our final segment by the current number freaking 1 player in the ITC in the whole dang world, Kyle Grundy. How you doing, my dude?
I'm good. Yeah. How the hell did I get up there? What's happening in the world right now? You
worked your ass off is how you did it. You worked your ass off. Probably spent a lot of money traveling all over everywhere. And show what people can do with a faction special if you just stay the course. Because at not one point have you not played Tau, and at not one point in this season has Tau been the undisputed best army in the game. They've been one of the best for most of the season, but they've never been number 1. They've probably been top 5, sometimes even like top 7 at times. And just shows what your dedication and study can do, mate. So congratulations. Let's see what happens at the end of the season.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right, but we're here to talk some to the Tau, and of course, I'm going to give you a chance to plug that Pure Tide program.
So, I'm Kyle, Commander Pure Tide. My program is designed around helping people improving their game from all levels, from newbies to beginners to mid-tier to tournament goers. I specialize on teaching you the why and the how, rather than just here's the winning list. And I run a big Discord. We've got nearly 2,000 members in it. We've got a budget for all. We've got a free community part, and we've also got the Pathfinder, Shasprey, and Chassel. I would love it if you can go and follow on YouTube, and then also come and check out the Pure Tide program. And trust me, if you want to elevate your gameplay, I'm the guy.
So I've even suggested to people, I've had mates of mine who have just been like, I have never been able to like consistently beat Tau. And I'm like, you should actually sign up for the Pure Tide program because you'll learn everything you need to know about beating Tau. Especially you'll learn what Tau players fear and what they don't want you to do versus them. So I heartily endorse it for Tau enjoyers and Tau haters.
Yeah. I mean,
don't nuke their Discord though.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Their Discord. Okay. Oh, you're just saying it was a good point. Fair enough. It was a good point.
Yeah, no, man. Sorry. Yeah, that was a bit of a silent one. Yeah, it was a good point because I never actually thought about like teaching people how to beat Tau.
Well, you almost do by default, right?
Yeah,
because
and I think a lot of services, including my own, will all be teaching you about the fundamentals of the game anyway. And it's really interesting to kind of focus on that because 9 times out of 10, the points are kind of prevalent. And if you don't score enough points, you don't win games. So it's actually less about the army and more about the general tactics. And then obviously you just adapt to the different flavors of different factions.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. So my dude, hot takes. Where are Tau at right now post slate, post MFM and core rule changes?
Yeah. So when it came out, had a look at Tau and I thought, okay, well, we've got some things that have gone cheaper. and a couple of increases. And I know everyone was complaining about Riptides going up to 190, but honestly, they're still a bargain. So I think
It's
Tau are kind of like well positioned because a lot of your MSU pieces like Kroot, for example, have got cheaper. Even the cheeky Krutox Rider is an absolute bargain. So we've got still plenty of action economy within the faction. So in a world where points win prizes, that's not a bad thing. So I think Tau, in terms of builds at the moment, can go multiple ways. You still got your traditional Kyle, which slaps. Sustain hits 2 is one hell of a drug. And I think the fact that Riptides have only gone up by 10 points, like my list went up by a total of 20 points. So I just adjusted something, made the Fire Knife team to a Burst Starsight team, and then voila, my list is fixed. Yep. So Kyle is still strong. I think with Retcad has probably come off the best because none of the important stuff like suits got touched outside of the Riptides. And to be honest with you, Riptides don't belong in Retcad, in my opinion. So my Retcad list went unscathed. In fact, it got 20 points cheaper, which gave me a cheeky enhancement. So Retcad and Kion are still very, very strong to tackle the meta, but there's been a new chicken on the block and Kroot are back in the game. So I think just to kind of like summarize the archetypes that are really good into the meta, you've got a proper skew list that you can take with loads of suits and have some fun. 3-inch deep strikes and fire and fade and just the mass firepower that you can bring to the table with the retaliation card is super powerful. And a lot of people are a little bit, I wouldn't say slow or behind, but I think people are sleeping on the no deep strikes within 12. And whilst that remains not kind of consistent in lists, you're really going to be able to punish people. So if you're an aggressive and fast player, I think that will be a very, very good meta choice. And then also Kroot, you could just go full on Horde and just win on points and just be super annoying. So I think Tau, the meta, in my opinion, I don't know what your opinion of this is, that I think it's MSU plus stat check like tanks or monsters. And the lists are showing a kind of a very firm balance between I'm going to take loads of infantry dudes and loads of tanks. So we can deal with that. And we can also do it ourselves. So I think Tau can deal with these threats in front of us.
I absolutely do as well. More than that, I want to just get on my soapbox and say it's absolute BS just how much stuff Tau get to take. Yep. I was incredulous that not other things went up. I didn't want the Riptide to go up. I didn't want anything to go up except for the utility units. I thought you kind of paid a decently fair price for your damage output. But I was just like single Krutox Rider, steal, single Piranha, steal, 3 stealth suits, absurd value. I want all those things up. I want the utility up because those are the things that overwhelm me in games. I look down at a Tau list and I'm like, this isn't going to kill me super fast, but oh my god, this thing just gets to score as well at infinity level scoring on top of like a guard gun line. This is kind of busted, and none of that changed.
I expected stealth suits to go up even to 65. I did want Kroot to come down.
I think Kroot could have come down with what they did to him in the slate. Almost every Kroot,
And I expected some of the commanders to go up, or the crisis to go slightly up, because 110 points for 3 Star Scythe, all with flamers or bursts, is just horrendous.
Very nice.
The fact that they focused on the Riptides, I was like, cool, that's fine, thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tau got off real light, and the fact of the matter is, one of their worst matchups, being Sisters, did get hit quite significantly, but has kind of just metamorphed into a different problem for Tau. So, what do they have going for them in the meta right now? Like, what are they doing that you think gives them strength and gives them agency?
So I still think that if I was to focus on the Retcad, because that is a new hotness, I think a lot of people are used to playing your typical Kion build, so they know the tricks. They know that to rush you early doors because your sustain hits 2 is going to be just they can't sustain that. They can't win the attrition war. So people are taking into just being able to go, right, okay, I'm going to push all these tanks and all these monsters at you, everything at once, and threat overload you. And I think that it's always been the way to kind of put pressure on the Tau player, because then the Tau player, if they make one mistake, they're done. So what we have going for us is that, one, if you are still taking Kion, you've got cheaper screens now, so you could just bank more into taking 2 or 3 units of recruit, or just to slow the enemy down because they got scout move, and that can really pay dividends to give you that board control. But Retcad for me is that you don't play that game anymore. You're like, okay, I have the board control, I'm just going to nuke you. So Crisis Suits being able to not only 3-inch deep strike, but then fire and fade afterwards, you can just delete pockets of like threats and then just fire and fade to safety. So people aren't as familiar with Retcad as they are with Kions. So you will always have the tempo control in Retcad, because if you push with everything, you go, okay, cool, I'll descend with everything upon you. So it's a really interesting way to play Tau, and myself and a lot of my students are saying, oh my God, this is a new fresh way. I'm loving it. Yes, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because if you do overcommit, you can fold, but if you get that balance right and you just focus on what you need to kill rather than what you can kill, you can just pick apart an enemy with ease. So I think Retcad gives you that kind of aggressive Tau Montcar style of playing that we've never had. And honestly, I think it's gorgeous. I think that's what we've got going for us. You could take a list like I've done, where for Battle of Britain, which is 21 Crisis Suits and 6 commanders, and still got all the chaff. I've got 2 units of battle line strike teams, 2 units of 1 unit crew, 2 Vespid, and stealth suits. It's just all the stuff, all the guns. Let's go.
It feels like an Eldari list that gets to take like, that gets to take. Never mind. Good stuff. Better stuff than they've got. I was just like, what's an Eldari equivalent of a Riptide? I'm like, they ain't got one. Well, never mind, Adam. Bad analogy. All right. What's the downsides? What is going against them in the game at the moment?
So I think what's going against them is, if you look at certain builds, like the Imperial Guard, let's just forget Aquilans right now, because they're a cancer in the game. Every faction can say, I hate Aquilans. But Guard can quite comfortably go, well, yes, our Bulgrin have gone up, but we've got Ogrins now. So they've got loads of MSU trading pieces, and they've got durable kind of transports and hellhounds that they could just push at you early to start that initial trade. And I think you have to commit something decent to start that trading war to kill the transports or the hellhound and things like that. And then what that does to the Tau player is that you're then playing their game, because then you have to reveal something, and then their tank commanders roll out. So any army that can stat check you on tanks and Horde presents you a problem, because you have to tech like for killing the tanks, but then also tech for Horde. And then there's going to be some builds out there that if they skew all into tanks, then it's going to be a problem. So I find that with my list building, it's really hard right now to tech for everything, probably because it's still early doors in the meta, but I'm finding that the balanced approach is the best way. So I think if you are holding on to your old style of lists, the Triptides and stuff like that, and you got your Iron Hammerheads, then you're just going to get stat checked by tanks. And then I think the only solution to this problem is to bring those railguns again from your Hammerheads. And then some matchups, your railguns will be useless. So that's the problem that we're having at the moment. The meta has changed quite drastically, and it's very hard to have like an all-comers list that will win it all. You're going to have some bad matchups, and I find that bad matchups are Indirect Sisters and Guard. Yep,
100% agree. And of course, one of the reasons Guard is an issue, and I'd feel like if Guard force you into playing their game, they open up a lot more 2-for-1s. Like there is only your fusion sides one shot a Russ consistently, right? So not fusion sides, fusion suits, or maybe 2 broadsides can do it if they pop right off. But they are heavily exposed by popping smoke, heavily exposed by the broadside heavily exposed by minus damage. It starts to get awkward. It starts to get awkward at times. But yeah, I 100% agree. I think if you can tech into Guard, but then I think you actually have problems with like pressure lists.
Pressure lists, exactly. And I think the problem that I've got at the top level is that I've got a couple of people gunning for me right now. I've got Innes Wilson, Josh Roberts, and Nassim, Innes, and Josh. And those 3 armies are CSM, is typical, 4 rhinos, 3 rhinos, 3 predators, and then I've got
He's on He's on like extreme CSM MSU now, isn't he? He's on like mass legionaries and rubrics with appropriate characters.
Yeah, and that game is really tight with Red Card, but in Kion it can just pressure me. And then I've got Nassim with Guard, which we've already talked about, and then we've got GSC, which is just mass bodies. So my railguns aren't going to be useful there. Whereas if I take Star
suits, burst suits and flamer suits,
suits, I've got a game. So from my perspective with list building, I'm having to tech for GSC, which my Ret Cad's really good at doing with all the flamers and the suits, but then it's not as bad into Guard because I can't deal with the tanks. And then I've got CSM, which is a problem because I have to take an all-comers list, but then I'm not really doing anything well. I'm just trying to keep and stay in that game. So it's really difficult to take for those three armies. So I think that's the problem. Tau are very good when the meta is settled, but when it's up in the air, we are kind of hard to find our groove. Hence why I'm favouring Retcad, because at least I have a game into everything and I can do the tempo control myself. And
it's exactly right. I was about to say it's more tempo and it's more dynamics, right? Yeah. Because Carrion and Monkar, whilst they're good, they're known. It's pretty face up. It is pretty like writing is on the wall. Either don't do shit for the first two turns or do all your shit in the first two turns. I love that. It was almost like playing against old white scars.
But then you've also got a problem for us in Retcad though, is that talk about horde armies like even GSC and AdMech could just take multiple of those guys that can just no deep strike within 12, and then that shuts down my game plan. So it's such a hard puzzle. So I think what's holding us back right now is the meta is not settled. So the list building puzzle is very, very, very difficult right now.
You don't know where. So I call that tech priority. You don't know where to prioritize the tech in your list. That those last like 500 points that'll make it better into this or better into that, and that's just not clear right now. And it's probably for the best. That probably just shows we're in a good place where there's no one top dog that is overtly dominant. I argue it's Guard. I argue everyone should just tech for Guard, and teching for Guard means you have anti-tank can pick up 10 guys, 10 guardsmen without batting an eyelid, and that puts you in good stead for most crap out there.
Yeah, well, a lot of players I've been talking to, like Jack Type myself, and anyone who's trying to deal with the equivalent, you just put a unit of flamers on your home field and go, okay, fine.
I was about to say.
I'll stay.
I was about to say, when I saw your list for this event, and I saw you were taking 2 flamer side units, I was like, Aquilon killing machines. That's what he's doing.
Exactly.
Like sick. All right, cool. That's actually great tech.
The flamer guy, the MVP, by the way, has been the enforcer with 4 flamers, and people are like, why are you putting flamers on the commander? You've got me. I'm like, yeah, but 10d6 flamers from a unit says no to anything. It goes Overwatch. I've killed 7.5 JPIs charging me on Overwatch. I've killed everything.
Well, it's just 1 CP shoot twice with that unit.
Exactly.
When you Overwatch, it's just 1 CP shoot again, and it's on your opponent's. It's on your opponent to not let you have that value. Yeah, I like that a lot.
And it's It's a great tech for protecting primary as well. So with the free rapid ingress with stealth suits, you can just put a stealth suit unit nearby, and when they come to try and take your primary, whoops, hello, here's 10d6 Overwatch, you're dead. Thank you very much. I got my primary.
My current tip was for everyone to get, because Darkstrider still gives the 10-inch no-go zone.
Well, then no deep strike, he does,
Yeah. 1 unit of flamer sides and Darkstrider should be like the starting in every singles list, I think.
Yeah.
Until Aquilons get put in the ground.
Pretty much.
Until they're put in the dirt. How much? Never mind. I'll ask you in part 2. All right. Fringe builds. Tell me about the cook-a-croot, mate. Tell me about the chickens.
So the chickens, right. So the great thing about the chickens, apart from getting the points reductions, is mainly a couple of mechanics that when I ran the Croots initially, when the Codex came out, you had so much jank in the tank, it was unreal. You had the Lone Op, I know it was better then, it's now Lone Op 18, but you had the regen, the Lone Op, and then the reactive moves and the redeploys. So obviously redeploys and the regen strat is still nerfed, aka you can't redeploy before knowing who's going after knowing who's going first or second, but that's still powerful for strat reserves. And then the Lone Op, you can still play around it. 18 is still great because you've got various things that can reactive move. So Croot, there's a guy called Tony Barrett who went to the 2-day Coventry and almost won the event with Croot. And he was a Montcard player. I know we had a chat. It was phenomenal. He played Andy Cross Quorum in the final. Only just lost that by a hair. Like it was super tight. So Kroot, people aren't prepped for. They can't. They are taking for Horde with flamers, but Kroot have a 5-up in bun from range, and then access to Feel No Pain if you take the relevant shaper, the flesh shaper. So I think what you can do with Kroot is you can overload bodies on the ground. But then if you take 20-man units of Kroot with a Trail Shaper in, they have reactive moves, which is super powerful for just taking objectives, reactive moving, letting them shoot you with the first activation, then pulling them away and then loan up in them. So you've got so many tools that can just say no to your opponent from a pure point perspective. And what I really like is that a unit of 3 Krutox riders, so 15 T6 wounds, is 90 points. And what you do is you put out a unit of 3 with the intention of loan up in them. And when they shoot your Kroot screen, you get to shoot them back with a Krutox unit. And you can arm the Krutox with either the autocannons, but I like the other gun that's like D6 like shots, blast. And you can just go, here's 3d6 into you in your shooting phase, and then do it again in your turn. So, and then you can just do something stupid. Like I've got a list with 3 railgun hammerheads, like 2 units of 6 rampagers, 3 units of 3 Krutox riders, and loads of Kroot and loads of characters, and loan up spears, guys, and no deep strike within 12 for 2 guys, Dark Strider and the lone spear. So I'm like,
this is what I was about to say. When we talk about like people talk about horde lists and what they conjure in their head is 120 neophytes, 100 Primaris Crusaders, max AC/DC squads, but that list still has like 3 Vindicator equivalents, 3 Predator equivalents. You can take 3 in Sky Rays if you want. You can take a bunch of Breaches, and not that you would. You can still take a bunch of Crisis Suits. It's not like an all-in. It's just an archetype choice. And I like that about the Kroot now as well, where you're not all in. And plus, Rampages feel surprised. They went down, yeah?
Yeah, they went to 190 points rather than 220, so they're a bargain. And you can use them in clever ways.
That's for 6, right?
Yeah, it's for 6.
It's like, stuff that's...
Yeah. And
oh boy, is that what gets Kroot players excited these days?
Yeah, Rampages, man. Angry gorillas smashing face. Going to Donkey Kong City.
yeah. You have to model the if you do not model them with barrels, they actually do no damage in combat. Okay, that's the deal. They are strength user AP nothing, no damage if they are not equipped with a barrel. All right, that's the rules.
Yeah, that's the rules, man. But the clever plays that you can do to catch people off guard is that usually in the game, someone will push on a turn and they'll try and cripple a flank. But you rapid ingress 6 Rampages, and then they charge something and you heroic intervene. You do mortals in their charge phase, which nobody likes to receive. And then you're just hitting them with fists. And then it's still, for a unit of 6, it's 30 wounds at T6. It's just obnoxious. And you just push, and you in the Kroot give you that ability to push in a combat aspect whilst also protecting the Kroot against their weakness, which is the tanks. So you take the relevant amount of railguns or sky rays just to cover that front, and then you've got all the mission play. You've got all of the bodies, you've got all the OC, you've got sticky objectives, and we all know how important sticky is. And if you've got, like, I don't know, let's just say you went full and took like 6 units of 20 Kroot, you've got 6 units that could literally, to go first, scout move 7, move, block them into their DZ for the rest of the game, and sticky all the objectives along the way. It's just crazy good. And then I know there's some Polish lists out there that have taken 3 units of 10 Kroot Hounds for 80 points and just gone yeet. And the Kroot Hounds are OC0, but they become OC1 when you got a Lone Spear or within 12. And then also you could just go, well, I've clogged you up with Hounds for next to no points. And then you got a wave of Kroot coming your way. It's just pure GSC level bodies.
It is. It really feels so GSC like. And not GSC this edition, GSC last edition. All right, moving on to our closing questions. First up, is there any dramatic change for Tau from a singles mindset to a team's mindset, do you think?
Yes. So the mindset is, if you look at teams, Kion or Tau gunline build has usually been the go-to pick, and they basically say to the team, I'm taking light board and I'm going to gun stuff down. But the change within teams is that Guard just do that better, and same with Indirect Sisters. So I think the big change for teams versus singles is that with Retcad, I don't need to bother about long-range anti-tank. I don't need to bother about having to tech for the boogeyman, because Tau don't really want to be on the later stages of the pairings. They want to be basically the first put, and usually they want to be like the first put down as a defender. But now I've found with Retcad, because I'm not taking all those hammerheads or broadside, I'm just taking mass bodies and mass suits, I could go and brawl with some of the combat armies in the heavier tables. So I can't use this list in a singles one because I'd need to take the long range and the anti-tank and stuff just to keep my opponent honest from firing lanes. Whereas in teams, I'm not bothered. So it opens up a really unique role for Tau now, and being like almost like a prey list in the kind of final stages of the pairings. So I really like that. And I think that's the difference between building a teams list and building a singles list.
Fan-freaking-tastic. All right, last question, my man. Where do you see Tau sitting in the current competitive tier list?
So I'd say that we're definitely still in that kind of, I'd say if you were to put like the traditional markings, I'd put them as a A tier. I'd say that we are probably still within a top 5. What I would say though is, as the meta shifts and ebbs and flows, it could probably go up or slightly down. But I think Tau, like I said before, are very, very, very good at beating an established meta. So every time a balanced data slate comes out, I'm just like, let the dust settle, and then we can start to really tailor and really chop and change some of the units that we take. So I think we're always going to be strong in the hands of somebody who understands complete tempo control, perfect deployment, positioning, and staging. If you're still in that mindset as a Tau player of castling up, then that is going to be your downfall. You need to play the aggressive game. So you've got plenty of tools in your toolbox to utilize that style of play. You just need to acknowledge it and apply it appropriately on the battlefield.
Love it, mate. Where would you put them in the teams tier list? Do they go up or down when you rate them for teams only?
So I definitely rate them up for, I'd say they're still top, and they're definitely an auto pick in the teams with Retcad, because I was talking to like captain and also talking to like Tony Chu and lots of other players within the England thing. I think it was really interesting in the Matrix, knowing that I could just go, guys, I really don't mind what table do you want? I'm not bothered. I don't want to pick a table if it's going to screw someone over. So I found that was really weird, because it's not a position that I've been used to with Tau in the past for teams. So I think the Retcad one, like you're seeing a lot of lists like Champions of Rust, Space Wolves, coming in, Blood Angels that are wanting to brawl in the heavier tables. Then I'm like, hey, we've also got combat armies, and we've got a brutal Retcad Tau list that can absolutely hunt you down. And that skews the pairings a little bit. And I like that. And so I think that actually Retcad in teams is way more interesting.
Totally agree. All right, my man, that is going to finish us off for this episode and for this segment. But fear not, Kyle and I are going to go record another similar length segment over on part 2. So hopefully you will join us there. Otherwise, please enjoy this song from my brother's band. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying it thus far. And I've had some incredible responses, and he's really enjoyed these guys on my show. Well, I don't know. I haven't told the story. So so a lot of artists, a lot of musicians who don't kind of make it big in life, kind of, end up getting jobs and families and step away. And he had all these amazing songs he had just compiled and written over the years that he never got a chance to record or do anything with, because he just wasn't actively in a band. And so he got his band back together for literally like 2 months, and they smashed out an album of all the songs they ever wanted to make. And that's what you're listening to. And so, yeah, really proud of it. Really happy to showcase what he's done, because I'm fucking proud of him and I love him. So, yeah, Kyle, thank you very much for coming on, mate. See you on part 2, everybody. Love you all. Take care. Enjoy the song.
You want a higher education? these failing constructs built to break and fall.